Welcome back to Nonsense. I'm Chris, and these are 241 Easter eggs, animation details, and missable jokes you may have missed in Season 8 of Rick and Morty, updated with over 100 comments that you'll see throughout the video. Starting off before even Episode 1, technically, and thanks to commenter Asaki for pointing out that we saw in Season 5, Episode 9, Rick has already trapped Morty in a matrix before.
Nick, maybe this isn't a good idea. Like, what if he catches us? He could trap me in a matrix again.
Next is inside the charger matrix Rick made, where for starters, there's obviously just a ton of charger-based stuff all over the place. The building over here looks like a big plug, and these are HDMI ports here, and thanks to all the commenters for correcting me on what they were. Next are the 3 magazine covers Summer is in: Better Homes and Chargers, obviously spoofing Better Homes and Gardens; Charging Stone, spoofing Rolling Stone; and The New Charger, spoofing The New Yorker. Then there's this other building over here, and the bottle on her bar set, and even Summer's necklace is charger related. There's a power logo up here, and I think this is a statue of a charger dongle. In her hidden compartment, she's got drawings of the house, and Beth, and Jerry, and some kind of blueprint. Once she gets to Morty's house, there's this funny moment where her high heel gets stuck in the mud. We only get a quick shot of Morty's house before it transitions inside, but we can see he's been chopping wood and pulling cars apart, obviously a hint at his mechanical leanings that he uses to build the tank later on. We see pictures of his comrades throughout the years, and the dog tags he got off CJ. But something interesting is that everything is clearly handmade, from the house to the furniture. He wanted to create a life away from the charger bullshit, so he literally built a house and furniture and started a little family with his dogs. But like we learned at the end, Morty wasn't actually just waiting. He was planning, and by all accounts his plan did work. There's nothing special about Summer's big machine, but a couple funny signs in the crowd of protesters though: God created outlets, and charge belongs in the wall. When they wake up, the monitors are just flashing the message, "Don't take Grandpa's phone charger." Once Beth joins, Summer says,
"Put that mind blower gun down,"
obviously referencing the origins of the gun in the Morty's Mind Blowers episode. During Morty's PTSD flashbacks, we see a lot more charger-related details, from the speaker to the cop uniform. Even the businesses are charger themed. This woman's wearing a bikini of chargers, and this sign is kind of funny: "Sock it to me." The jail suits say USB-C on them, and the job application is literally just a bunch of questions about taking phone chargers. He's also got a charger in his helmet, clearly designed to look like the cigarette packs soldiers wore this way. We also see him choke a guy out with a charger and throw a grenade through an outlet shape. Once he's back, he does his best to put Rick at ease, calls him a
smart man,
tells him about a new device, only after having proven himself to know about some engineering throughout the episode.
The struts were a little off.
The struts were a little... Wow, okay, the struts were a little off.
Think we should add a snorkel intake to the engine block.
Damn, Morty. Maybe I should leave you in a matrix more often. I gotta hand it to you. This feels pretty good. Good old American craftsmanship, Morty.
Feels good to use your hands.
And I gotta say, this disillusioned Morty speaks with a really calm, numb tone of voice, a lot like evil Morty. I think the line reads are basically identical, and that was probably a decision. Rick also escapes Morty's matrix the exact same way Summer escaped his, by creating a directly opposing paradox to the Matrix's core lesson. In this case, taking the form of an exact copy of the actual Matrix's real Earth. Like, she created a world that didn't need chargers anymore. It's also hilarious to me that they go out of their way to show that this guy survived the car wreck. I mean, how many deaths is Morty responsible for at this point? I don't think one more would matter, right? Like Rick said,
"You're still the same old Morty. Your character's totally protected."
It feels good.
I'm pretty sure that applies at the end of every episode, right? But something interesting that we can thank the commenter Sir Zek for pointing out is that not only is this a direct reference to the famous 2004 Colorado so-called Killdozer incident, but Morty not killing anyone while in it is exactly what Marvin Heemeyer, the perpetrator of the real-life incident, did as well, which kind of makes the name Killdozer funny. After Rick stops the kids from beating up the scientist and averts the nuclear meltdown, which their reaction is a continuation of the simulation-based PTSD gag that's been going on for a while.
Hey, Morty.
What?
Hey, little buddy.
Have you been drinking, Rick?
I really appreciate you, Morty.
All right, Rick. No.
You little son of a
What are you
bitch!
doing, Rick?
Are you a simulation? Huh? Are you a simulation?
No! I'm back. Don't! or I won't know if I'm out.
No.
Fucker! Matrix piece of shit!
Oh, easy, guys. Christ, you're not in a Matrix.
But anyways, he gets enough radiation to instantly cause the lesions and hair loss from severe radiation exposure, but literally just wipes it away afterward, which was awesome. And is also a reference to the Doctor Who End of Time special scene where his wounds heal after absorbing a bunch of radiation. Thanks to the Doom Lord for pointing that one out, and thanks to D.L. Horton for pointing out the fact that the 20% tip gets cut off the rod so he can keep it, which is hilarious. Moving on to episode 2, in the opening, despite not having any lines, we can still see Bug Ann in her first appearance this season before she takes the stage for the finale. There's also a cool looking three-eyed alligator over here. The droid Garcica, who the leader hands the meeting off to, is a clear reference to L337 from Star Wars, who's in love with Childish Gambino.
How would that work?
That works.
The assassination committee includes a member of the Squanchy species, and in the crowd is a Gromflemite who's joined the cause and grown out an awesome head of red hair. Space Beth's gliding scene is clearly imitating the Dark Knight's awesome gliding scene. Even though this is happening in space, so what would her wings be gliding on? When she's about to call Rick in her contacts, we see Beth number 2, Bug Ann, Casali, who I don't recognize, Corsica, the droid from earlier, Rick obviously, Doug Lug, her neighbor, and finally Dr. Wong, which is a bit of a surprise, honestly. Rick eating at the sushi place in the sub-basement you'll remember from Season 6, Episode 10.
We live over a cool sushi spot?
Domo, still doing the ear roll?
And when he gets the call, his phone says Beth, parentheses, space one, and she's in this weird yellow outfit I don't think we've ever seen her wear, and has left me kind of curious. Leroy speculated it might be a reference to the yellow Kill Bill suit. I thought maybe she wore it in the snow during one of the winter episodes she's in, but after skipping through them, she never did, so I'm still kind of stumped on this one. Beth gets stitched up by a little droid, which a few people insisted was a Star Wars droid reference, but didn't provide a name. And I searched for a while and did not find anything that looked anything similar to this, even though there are multiple medical droids and little droids, but none of them look anything like this. Rick orders a
Lava cake to go.
which makes me think of this scene from episode 9 of this season.
What's the story with dessert? Can I just ask for lava cake, or do I have to think it at them?
After Beth gets fired from her assassin job, she's upset, so she says,
Whatever, drop me off in space.
which is funny because
There's literally everything in space, Morty. Now get the fuck back in the car.
the racist bug they interrogate is watching the days and nights of Mrs. Pancakes here.
You don't know me.
Nice, Mrs. Pancakes.
He jumps out the window to escape, but they catch him, and kind of reference Batman Begins with this interrogation.
Swear to me!
The second Dark Knight trilogy reference so far, although this is also just kind of a comic book trope at this point.
All right, here, I'll show you. There, see? Now he'll tell me everything.
You're gonna catch him, right?
In a second.
The Doctor's base is very Death Star looking, and when Rick kills some of the bugs, he says,
I hope killing these things is leveling us up.
which is the first video game reference of the episode. The second being towards the end when the general guy says,
Scanners show a big, scary, dramatic spore hive growing deep underground. Real, final boss vibes.
which makes me think the writer's room was watching Solo Leveling or something while writing this episode. Around the doctor's office, we see some biological experiments, what looks like a contained biome, and a bug in the fetal stages over here. As he escapes, he says,
Living rent-free in your head!
a phrase he repeats so many times in the episode, it makes me think the writers had like a seething hatred for the phrase.
Living rent-free in your head! And in those minds will be me, paying no rent at all! I might even charge rent! No one gets to say the phrase rent-free after I die! It dies with me! I did everything you could do with it! Rent-free!
During the fight, we can see the classic "but first coffee" sign in the break room. Behind Beth, as she dons her energy blades, we see the Daily Hive and a water jug with, I think, blood in it. Here we see a no litter bug sign, which is really funny. When Beth is fighting her way on stage, she throws this little energy ball that expands into a bubble. And it might be crazy, but it reminds me very much of the Titan bubble from the Destiny franchise, especially if you sprint and slide before casting it. The animation looks basically just like that. But she does throw it, so who knows. Only pointing it out because of the other two video game references in the episode so far. When Rick starts testing by infecting a soldier, though, I love the expression on this bug's face when the general says,
Your service. Federation stands scrung and scrung with you.
Once he finds the cure, he uses the containment unit like one of those old school money booths I've only ever heard of. Once they're on their way to the hive, I love how Bird Daughter just rides the cure gas bomb into the hive. This guy has a Bug State University sticker on his helmet, which is where he says his son is going to college. During the fight, Bird Daughter turns her wings into a saw and chops their heads off in an awesome move, and thanks to this amazing commenter for pointing out that this is a direct reference to the Silver Fang anime. A reference that works on more than just the visual level, since in the scene the father is literally having a teaching moment with his son.
それは代々わしらの血の中に伝わる必殺技の本能があるからだ。必殺技？それを今息子であるお前に教えよう。父さん。息子よ、よく見ておけ。わしの必殺技、秘伝絶天狼抜刀画を。はい、父さん。
A crazily direct reference that's so easy to miss if you haven't seen and remember this specific anime. So, great catch. During the celebration, we can see a bug pope of some kind over here, while Bugan gives Rick and Beth medals. Moving on to episode 3, and we can immediately see the first Easter egg, which comes in the form of season 5, episode 10's Andy.
I'm Citadel's new mascot, Andy, because this place wouldn't be home without Rick's and Morty's.
Rick asks,
Didn't the Egyptians invent those?
which no, they did not, but the ancient Egyptians did have spinning tops, and they did have a small mace with animal heads on each side that some geologists speculated could be akin to a fidget spinner like a decade ago, but no, the Egyptians did not invent fidget spinners. As they fly over a small town, we see a Morty reading a magazine called Sex Vogue, which is a really on-the-nose name. There's also a Morty with a horned skull mask playing with a yo-yo. Morty asks,
What's that guy's deal?
Morty, I can't imagine anything worse than having to know.
a classic gag the show does on most Citadel episodes where Rick essentially says nobody wants a Citadel episode in some form or another at the beginning of one.
Rick, let's have dinner with the Morty president.
Morty, the idea was to get back to simple adventures. The Citadel runs on canon. If I know these a-holes, and I am these a-holes, they just want to haul me to their stupid clubhouse and waste my time with a bunch of questions. Let's get it over with. Fucking hillbilly.
What's that guy's deal?
Morty, I can't imagine anything worse than having to know.
Jeez, I didn't know there were still Ricks and Mortys living on the Citadel. I wonder what their day-to-day lives are like.
Well, you can keep wondering that while we go on a fun, fresh, self-contained adventure to Atlantis. Anyone continuing to explore the Citadel is either stupid or one of the unfortunate millions held hostage by their terrible ideas.
Man, I'm glad I'm not one of them.
Farmer Rick's pigs include a two-headed pig we can thank SC Goodwill for pointing out are blonde and brown-haired, meaning they're probably related to Beth and Jerry somehow, especially since he has a necklace of it. His pigs also include a human pig, a cyclops, a pig wolf, and a three-eyed pig who we can see has some strange mucus coming from his eyes and mouth that the others don't have. On the way to the arcade, we can literally see some of the remains of the Citadel, as well as a piece of a sign that just says Rick's. This Morty's eating a cup of noodles, which does make me wonder what all these Mortys eat. We see a cool Elvis Rick during the raid. Later at the KFC Rick's base, the elevator is manned by Oddjob Rick, a clear reference to the James Bond character Oddjob. He gets to the top and we see an old-timey, almost Sherlock and Watson type Rick and Morty right here. There's also two dancer lady Ricks entertaining some male Ricks at these tables. Two Mortys are dressed as waitstaff, and this guy is using a Morty as a footstool. The leader is obviously a Colonel Sanders reference, and you can see there's real organized construction going on, so the Citadel is definitely alive and well. When Farmer Rick finds his home in ruins, there's even a burnt carcass of the three-eyed pig out front. We do see him work on his droids and his pickup before leaving, setting up all the explosives for the end of the episode, I'm guessing. This Doc Morty is a Deadwoods reference. We then start what I'm going to call the headshot counter, because in total for this sequence, he gets 22 headshots, making the average of the headshot per minute across the whole episode 1 per minute, which is crazy.
Damn it, that's not a 6! Morty just really good at making.
After the whole final fight sequence is over, though, him erecting graves for Rick and his dead friend before settling down on his new porch, it's the bow on top of the enormous setup that this whole episode was for the real joke. this scene.
Hey, is your Rick around? I think my Morty dropped his fidget spinner down here. Oh shit, Morty. I think this little dude killed his Rick.
You really think so?
Oh, look, he buried him out front as a warning.
Ice cold. Is that a second, smaller grave?
Burnt down his house, too.
Christ, I didn't kill. Found it! Told you I checked between the seats.
When you're right, Morty. I admit that kind of stuff now.
And I can admit you're really changing. Assholes.
The joke obviously being how crazy the stark contrast is between socioeconomic classes in society, even in society of Ricks and Mortys. Like, our Rick and Morty are talking up Rick's big emotional changes that have come from therapy. An awesome thing that we shouldn't downplay, but to someone whose basic daily survival is at constant risk, that type of growth just seems meaningless. They also just assume the absolute worst about him just because he's poor compared to them, which makes it even funnier. It's like hearing a celebrity talk about how important mental health is and how much they love therapy, and you're dumb if you don't consider it, while you work your third job and still can't afford basic health care, let alone something like therapy. Moving on to episode 4, at dinner we see this bunny that definitely looks like the bunny from later in the episode. Rick traps Jerry in what he calls a
Mitogen deterrent. Should slow down the transformation.
mitogens being critical for cell growth. In the German town, there are little Easter-themed pop-up stands. Rick comments the egg is from Andromeda, setting up the joke later where Morty can't remotely remember how to say the word.
Andromeda.
All right, to Matabra!
Are you messing with me? Nice little mini arc.
And all it took was a trip to Matabra!
When the Christ Trooper takes the egg to his boss, they reveal a really funny gag that the angelic music we'd been hearing throughout the fight scene, which we'd assumed was the soundtrack of the show, was actually diegetic audio of this guy playing his alien instrument. And as he takes off from the mothership, they do this really funny flight animation gag, like it's flapping side to side. They do an Indiana Jones style map travel following Rick and Morty from the Milky Way to Andromeda, and there's a couple of details here. First, the label Gigante or Gigante, which is Spanish for giant. It's not the name of any celestial body I'm aware of, so I assume it's supposed to be a label for the supermassive black hole at the center of our universe. It also has north, south, east, and west annotations, which is funny for space travel. And finally, Cthulhu over here. Also, the center of the Andromeda galaxy is an egg for the sake of the episode. On the alien planet, the vibes take a shift from Indiana Jones hard into the Alien franchise instead. We immediately see a skull with bunny teeth and a giant statue, which is clearly alien themed. There's also eggs everywhere, which is obviously Easter themed, but the creepy vibes also make it alien themed still. They then notice the giant alien themed throne, with these two being the most obvious visual nod to the xenomorphs so far in the episode. They then have to duck behind a rock because these big guys show up, and they are an obvious nod to the engineers from the Alien franchise, most prominently seen in Alien Prometheus, which is why later Rick says,
That's the whole plot of Alien Prometheus.
Wow, sounds memorable!
During the commotion later, one of the troopers hilariously calls Rick a dentist.
Stop the dentist!
Another of the troopers manages to shoot Rick's portal gun though, so Rick throws the fluid on him, which is always fun to watch in slow-mo. And they escape through some kind of hatch while Rick makes a rolling the stone away from Christ's tomb joke. Then they come out of what obviously looks like a butt with diarrhea. In the bar Jerry goes to, we can see this really funny bit they did where the bar got a C rating from the health department, but they added letters so it says credit accepted instead. There's also some generic signs over here, but this one cuts off so it just says fancy cock, which is funny, and a license plate that just says love beer. Later during the fight, having them emerge from their own bodies is also very alien of them, obviously. And after when the Christ Trooper takes the eggs and leaves, him still being alive despite being cut in half is obviously a joke about explaining how Jesus was still alive after being crucified. They just assumed he was dead, but this species basically never dies. During the holiday destruction montage, the funniest and hardest to notice is Labor Day, during which they do office work, which is really funny. When Summer's in a spring break religious tent for someone named Madison, and this guy makes an offering, his eyes are stitched shut, which is hilarious, and what is the lore? We then see Madison on her pool chair throne with two bodyguards each holding a stripped beach umbrella as a weapon, which is hilarious. And in the post-credit scene, the Christ Trooper's house is very religious architecture, and he also says,
I have lived my life poorly.
Final Indiana Jones reference of the episode.
He chose poorly.
Moving on to episode 5, when Rick wakes up in the kid's cryo chamber, there's a no crying in cryo sign up here. Meanwhile, Morty wakes up in the Makeys cryo section, obviously a reference to the movie Mickey 17, where the titular character is used in a futuristic space society for ridiculous manual labor tasks and treated like a subhuman. Once the rebellion started, we see the Makeys have been building weapons, managing to make a rifle of some sort that Morty uses later in the episode. Once we catch up with the real kid and the janitor at the casino, in the wide shot we get a guest appearance from the snail in the precog episode later this season. The only way I can make the post-credit scene make sense is by putting the clips together. So here are 3 clips from throughout the episode, and then the scene in the casino from the actual post-credit scene.
Monkey bones. Was Jimmy a monkey?
Lizzie! No! I thought you escaped! Can't bring back Lizzie, but he can buy another monkey that I will also name Lizzie! And he say it once again. Thank you, new Lizzie. New Lizzie, think about this. That's all our money. We were gonna start a new life. Oh, Jesus.
And a full house for the monkey.
New Lizzie! I always knew you could do it.
Not many hidden details in that episode. The casino world was incredibly bland. I was expecting some zany casino names or something at least. Anyways, moving on to episode 6, and I'm going to start this one by listing off every big head character throughout the whole episode, just to get that out of the way first. Starting with Marie Curie and John Legend here, and this is obviously supposed to be Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Big head Kevin Costner points them towards where they can find the founder. This is clearly Stephen King, who I mistook for Steve Jobs. Thank you to everyone who pointed that one out for me. This is Marilyn Monroe, Hitler, Count Chocula, whose name I didn't know last time, so thank you to everyone who corrected me on that. Black Swan, the It Clown, obviously, Muhammad Ali, and this here is hilariously a self-insert Danny DeVito, who, like I said, is voicing the Doctor character, and we get a really quick shot of a Ted Danson big head and a Weird Al big head, both eating someone. I think this is Tony Hawk, and this is definitely Wendy. This is Miyazaki, an amazing artist and filmmaker who I can't believe I didn't recognize. This is Nicolas Cage, and finally there's... During the cross-cutting opening in Spacebeth's place, we mostly just see empty bottles and dirty laundry everywhere. Specifically also a bra here. I wonder if it's hers or maybe a partner's. We've got a very plump pillow down here, and she's working on either a robot or maybe a suit, possibly even new parts for her own robot body. There's a crystal here. I'm curious if it's maybe a death crystal, but there's also just so many crystals in this show. And also just like the head and beak of some kind of bird creature here, some kind of spike ball here, and then just a bone. And thanks to Mathlete for pointing out, we get to see Davin at the office. The song played during this sequence is the Cheers theme, and it's very much connected to the theme of the episode, being about needing to go somewhere where you feel like you belong and feeling that happiness, with the implication here being that despite us seeing the Beths doing what they want to be doing, they're not happy, and they definitely don't feel like they belong. The 3 henchmen Space Beth fights are kind of funny. They're all animal themed: rhino, monkey, and hammerhead shark, with Hammerhead already looking back at her with his head still turned the other way when she breaks the door down, which is a funny detail that's only on the screen for a split second. On the way home, Beth eats fast food, and Space Beth eats ration type K breakfast. Again, the family always eating breakfast food, and a can of Gouda cheese, which is a fascinating meal, honestly. Later, Rick says,
"Nobody wants to see a Beth's adventure."
An ongoing gag where Rick says something along the lines of nobody wants to see X or Y at the beginning of an episode about that very thing.
I can't imagine anything worse than having to know. Anyone continuing to explore the Citadel is either stupid or one of the unfortunate millions held hostage by their terrible ideas. Nobody wants to see a Beth's adventure.
When Earthbeth wishes she could be young again, Spacebeth gives the very Rick response,
"That kind of wish never goes the way you want,"
before doing the very Rick thing by immediately doing it anyway. And I gotta say, Spacebeth has earned more than a streak of Rick's signature blue in her hair. I hope by the series finale she's gone full blue, honestly. But right before she starts the de-aging process, she says,
"Oh, no. Technology this advanced is indistinguishable from magic."
Virtual and exact quote from Arthur C. Clarke's Third Law. At the park, the entry area is clearly modeled after Main Street, USA at Disney World, even being called Main Road. There's a human stuff shop and an I Earth shirt, which is kind of funny. The statue in the middle, obviously a reference to Walt Disney himself. There's wagons selling jewelry made from human teeth, the moving spectacular sidewalk that this alien in particular seems very excited to be riding. There's even this bouquet of earth balloons, just like the kind they sell at Disney. These hilarious light up corn dogs, great pun, and here we can see Jerry actually bought a light up corn dog, which is classic him. Here though, Morty says one of the most concerning lines.
I'm not gonna shit on it too hard because I know you'd punish me.
Which Moses Rufai pointed out is a reference to moments like the Vat of Acid episode where Rick ridiculously overreacts to stuff and quote-unquote punishes Morty. Thanks to DeMaestro for pointing out the alien Morty's flirting with is voiced by the actor who voices Webby from DuckTales. While that's happening back here, there's a shirt with the acronym Earthworld, which spells out EW, which is kind of funny. Another Earth Items type shop sign, and the guy who walks away here stole those sunglasses, which is really funny. Back at the house, we see some great chalk paintings on the wall, as well as several blades on the ground. Obviously, there's a head chopped off guy over here, the horse here, and a frowning sun. Not sure why this butterfly is dripping, and thanks to this commenter for pointing out that this is a broken heart here. Kid Beth jump scares Space Beth, excited to have violently killed a possum, which, yeah, that fits with what we know about young Beth.
It was just more practical to sequester you before I had to start, cloning a replacement for every less than polite little boy or gullible animal that might cross your sociopath.
While Kid Space Beth tricks Earth Beth into de-aging herself, we can kind of see the trick box set up over here that Space Beth uses to trap her. And inside the fort, we see drawings of Rick's ship and Rick himself, as well as a little house. There really is no distinguishing difference between the two Kid Beths. I stared for a while and could not spot anything. Back at the park, you can see they do the fake blue sky painted on the wall thing. Classic theme park. We also see one of the guys from the pilot episode. While Jerry is going in the bushes, we get another really direct Disney reference in the form of this Earthworld hat, which is literally shaped like a Mickey head. Back at the Beth's expanded fort, there's a bunch of stuffed animal heads on spikes over here to ward off enemies, of course, a big fish about to eat a smaller fish over here, another two frowny faces here as well, and a really well-made cardboard dragon. And when the camera shifts to the treehouse, we can still see the outline of the two graves down here. There's a best friends forever sign here, the two of them holding hands, and presumably one of the decapitated stuffed animals whose heads are outside here. As they enter Gene's room, we see he literally has a G for his name on his door, which is just so basic. But I guess that fits for Gene. He also has the entire Twilight collection, so maybe he's just a basic bitch. Morty and the alien girl get off a traffic jamboree ride, which is funny, just the idea that it's a fun experience worth replicating. There's some standard work posters here. The mascots of the month has Hitler on it and the Swan Lake lady. In the maintenance office, we meet the founder, Dr. Toboggan. No wait, Dr. Dogballs, played by Mantis Toboggan, who is played by Danny DeVito. His office looks cool, but doesn't pack much detail. He's clearly obsessed with the minutia of being a human. Coffee cup, toaster and fork weirdly, a glove down here, a box that says Supreme, which I thought was just a weird zany thing, but thanks to Dead Turret for pointing out that this is an actual thing that exists for sale in our real world. So yeah. Dr. Dogball's original theme park is obviously full of hilarious horrors, starting immediately here with Falling Nightmare the Ride, Who is Stalking You, Pain 4D with the Confederate soldiers wearing 3D glasses, Blood Alcohol Simulator, which, yeah, sign me up, I'm guessing Rick's favorite activity too. Hitler is doing his salute wearing a Hitler's Mind armband. This just says burgers? Not sure about that. There's a porta potty with, I think, grass pouring out of it. Down here, there's a snakes only stand, with snakes literally built into the stand itself. Up at the top right here, we can thank Vodka Studios for pointing out that it's on a dinosaur and likely says Dino Experience, which does fit, and I agree is probably what it says. I'm just so curious what the dino ride would be like in Earthworld. Over here we have Workplace Outbreak with pictures of sick coworkers, a sign that says Come Watch Crime at 12 a.m., clearly referencing human crime watch organizations, which is a really clever joke. The episode breakdown, I actually got this wrong though, so thank you to None of Your Beeswax for correcting me. Probably my favorite ride though is just Suicide Bridge, which is a crazy ride name and is absolutely hilarious. Back in Gene's kitchen, his shopping list is just milk and cabbage. I mean, they are really making him out to be the blandest character, which is funny, and I'm just surprised he has any alcohol around instead of, like, prune juice and oatmeal or something. But I guess that makes it all the funnier when the two Beths egg each other on to brutally attack him. While the Beths are fighting, one Beth uses an old reference to defend herself from an attack.
Look at some of the shit you were asking me to make you as a kid. Ray guns, a whip that forces people to like you, a teddy bear with anatomically correct innards.
At one point, a bucket door trap has melted crayons and push pins, which we can thank Adusa Dunkadools for pointing out. This is a direct reference to the Simpsons episode All's Fair in Oven War.
I think your grilled crayon sandwich was delicious.
You only had a pretend bite.
No, I'm eating it.
Can you taste the thumbtacks?
Ah, crap.
Slowing down this ride they're on for a second because it is weirdly interesting. Just the same bits of farm equipment repeating over and over. They are interesting though, and my favorite part is the cow sticking its head out of the seemingly tiny barn, unless this is a huge cow. This is just one loop that they play over and over though, of the same assets, which makes sense because it's hard to see at normal speed. Something that is a borderline animation mistake though, is that the only thing we see behind them are buildings that look nothing like what we're seeing on the side. And Destrath pointed out that there was an expression that World War II was fought with combines harvesters specifically, which is why so many of the things on the farm are literally just armed combines and harvesters. He then heals Gene's hand using the same device we've seen him use on Morty during Season 5, Episode 9. Here there's a Beth Rules with a Z. When they attack him together, he pulls out these awesome little auto-expanding cubes that capture them. Back with the Danny DeVito character, this is a rabid animals-themed ride called Rabies River, which is simultaneously scary and sad. In this section of the park, there's the Second House Smokehouse, there's Spleen Remover, Murderborn, something that looks like the Spaceship Earth ride at Epcot, but just covered in some of the world's most iconic sights. When Danny DeVito reveals that he believes that the greatest tribute to Earth is a theme park that ends in chaos, he also makes this hilarious reference to the Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disney World.
You're on a boat ride when suddenly you take a detour to a waterfall, and now you're in a pirate's den, forced to suck dick to stay alive.
While he's delivering part of his monologue, the Danny DeVito big head just stands behind him, and it's so direct. I love it. When Morty runs away, we see the janitor experience again, which is funny. This sign is for dog soup, which is horrifying. Group imagination room, which sounds like just an empty room. Human trash, which sounds funny. And a phone booth to literally watch paint dry. We then see the mosquito pavilion, the city hall crawl, just divorced apartments, and the carpet sample stunt show. Then while Morty's backing away from the entire Culkin family in one body, we see Hipster Coffee and Cat Scratch Cafe. And back here, there's a welcome serial killer paradise sign. I assume leading to like a cabin in the woods situation. Then there's the tunnel of divorce back here before Morty stabs the Culkins and runs off. We see something called Baseball Just the Food, which does sound awful to me personally. Summer goes in and at first it seems like she's about to save this guy, but just takes his car keys instead, which have a cute alien version of Patrick Star on them from SpongeBob. In the ending, they essentially play the episode opening over again with the Cheers theme playing and everything, but this time it's just not juxtaposed, because the Beths have found somewhere they feel they belong. They found acceptance and healed their inner child, if only a little. In the post-credit scene, we hear Gene's 911 calls from throughout some of the series. None of them directly corresponded to anything I could think of. We had a few people sort of guess in the comments, but none of them were accurate. Just definitely things that are similar to things we've seen in the show before. But if any of you connect any of them to something specific, just let me know in the comments. Moving on to episode 7, thanks to Uriel for pointing out that the whole concept of the episode, getting stuck in a living AI-generated simulation of a movie where you have to get to the ending, is the exact plot of Season 7, Episode 3 of Black Mirror, Hotel Reverie. When we open on the battlefield, we immediately have the first and most obvious Easter egg. The aspect ratio is set to a cinematic widescreen for the scenes taking place within the movie universe, but switches back to standard 16:9 for the in-universe scenes. On one side of the battle, there's these evil plant people led by Baron Thistle, and given that this episode is a Marvel or at least superhero / just general blockbuster reference, I have to point out it's a reference to Baron Zemo. To me, he reads Bond villain more than anything else. Josie Strife pointed out, though, that he's also very Cobra Commander coded, and I definitely agree with that. They also pointed out that Velocitrees being robots is akin to the Transformers, even though they don't really transform, making them a Marvel / Fast and Furious / DC / Transformers stand-in heroes. And they are also numbered, and thanks to Wem for pointing out that in the new Superman movie, his robots are numbered too. And since this episode features James Gunn, I'm guessing they're right that it's a reference. So first up we have number 4, and the leader of the team, Arbor Knight. Sword and shield make me think he's a cross between Captain America, Wonder Woman, and an arbor tree. Arbor tree is also famous by name for Arbor Day, which is actually just about all trees, not just arbor trees, but maybe in this world it's his birthday or something. We also find out at the end that this robo-leaf canopy on his head is not even meant to be his leaves, but just his hat, signifying he's the leader, which is hilarious and makes no sense. Next up is number 1, Redwood. He's got a pistol and is called a hothead, so closest thing I can come up with is a cross between the Human Torch, Red Hood, and a redwood tree. Redwood tree is famous for being the alien forests in Star Wars. Third is number 2, who is called Palme d'Or. Not a real type of tree, but a direct reference to the best award a film can get at the Cannes Film Festival. And since this tree is supposed to be a super genius, I'm guessing he's the Iron Man stand-in. And he also spins his little palms to be able to fly, which is kind of cute. Next is number 3, Cypress, whose role is being the
Girl boss lady.
which is hilarious and obviously a reference to Black Widow, hence the lips. And lastly, we have number 5, Tannenbaum, the German word for fir tree, aka Christmas trees, who has an awesome rocket board for like 2 seconds that I would really want. I'm not sure who he's the stand-in for, but based on them referencing him as a kid's toy specifically, I'm guessing someone along the lines of Rocket, even though he's a genius, so maybe Hulk. I mean, out of all the superhero characters, who looks most like a toy to you? I'd guess the Hulk, but this character's vibe is unlike any hero I can think of personally. The credits roll, and we see it was written and produced by James Gunn, setting him up as the cameo. However, most of these names are the names of people who actually work on the show. Catherine Wheaton was a production assistant, Daniel Kachaturian was a production manager, Jackie Cadiente worked in character design, Julia Glassman was an animation supervisor, Brent Knoll was an effects designer, Jack Iguanti was a design coordinator, Steve Levy was a producer, Maya S. is probably Maya Shazvin, a character designer, Byron Merrill, it just says worked in the animation department, Ryan H. I'm not sure about, there's Ryan Hansen who's voice acted on the show for 2 episodes, but I doubt it was him. Zach V and Justin V don't seem to have worked on the show though, so those names are just made up. But Brad Lewis is also a character designer, and Kelly Yu is a prop designer. Helen Bell is yet another character designer, and Ryan Cohen is a technical director, and also here as a yes man. I'm guessing that's an inside joke for the crew. Noel Rolock is a design assistant. Will McCarthy is here as his actual job for Rick and Morty. Sean Bodley is a background designer. And lastly, Jennifer Vogan is an associate producer. We see the crystallized xanthanite from the interdimensional cable episodes for a second, while Rick literally pisses on the TV. In James Gunn's office, we see posters for some of the other movies in the franchise. They all just say Maximum Velocity, though. We also see some toys, action figures, and a replica of the plane we see them fly. Down here is The Art of Being Super, and a book just titled Comics. James saying,
"The next Maximum Velocity movie has been rewritten 40 times.
is clearly a reference to the recent Marvel movies like Captain America, Brave New World, Thor Love and Thunder, The Marvels, Ant-Man Quantumania, and even the well-reviewed Thunderbolts, which is the best entry they've released in a while, but was rewritten to death like the rest I listed. When Rick loads the script into the machine, we see it was written by Alan Smithtree, which is a reference to the name Alan Smithy, a pseudonym used by directors who don't want their names attached to a film. It originated in Death of a Gunfighter when the original director was replaced 2/3 of the way through filming, and neither director wanted their names attached, claiming the film was not what they had envisioned. Pretty fitting for most late-phase Marvel movies. This 6-second scene, which is obviously supposed to represent them being digitized, was super interesting to look at frame by frame, but unfortunately didn't seem to contain any Easter eggs. Just some pictures from the movie along the walls, and then some really interesting forms they take, and afterwards they throw up weird digital matter. When Jerry generates the awesome getaway vehicle for them, though, I love the detail that the car is generated by text cursor, and the car sets up my favorite line of the episode.
It's a family sedan! Shoot it!
When they go to revive Baron Thistle, his mausoleum has a great line on it. Here lies Baron Thistle. He died doing what he loved, hating trees. Morty's transformation after the blade is cool to watch in slow-mo, and while Jerry is talking, we see the exact story circle that Dan Harmon uses in all his stories, including every episode of Rick and Morty. And we also got the clearest shot yet of this little thing back here, and I am dying to know what it is. I've racked my brain, I've Googled, I've image searched, I've even asked the AI overlords, and it seems so familiar, but I cannot figure out what this thing is. A couple people took long shot guesses, but we're definitely wrong. So if anybody knows, please leave it in the comments. In Baron Thistle's evil lair, the first shot only has one box with a label. It just says plates and bowls, which I found hilarious for an evil plant army. When the shot transitions, we also see a box labeled kitchen stuff, and another one marked fragile that's upside down, which is kind of funny. Later, the car James is in is a real vehicle that he owns, a Dodge Challenger SRT Hellcat. When he calls Jerry, we get this great shot of his phone laying in a puddle of spilled booze from one of Rick's flasks, and we see Rick change Jerry's background to a picture of him flashing the camera in front of the WB water tower. When Rick talks to Tannenbaum in prison, he says what I think was a reference to Deadpool and Wolverine.
Everyone sucks until they don't. That's the arc of every good story.
Whoever you think I am, you got the wrong guy.
You were always the wrong guy. Until you weren't.
Later in the warden's office, we can see that this warden might be an alcoholic. This is his office at work. I mean, good lord, just carry a flask, people. Back at the Hall of Justice, or whatever, we see a social media post about Morty titled Operation Complete and Total Polar Ice Cap Destruction, hashtag climate change, hashtag evil plan, hashtag villain core. James tries to butter Jerry up by saying,
I read that dinosaur book you wrote, Jerry.
Obviously a reference to the self-help book Jerry wrote during the Dino episode.
We will distribute it to everyone on Earth tomorrow.
I'm a famous author! Wait, where's my name? Excuse me, aren't you gonna say who wrote it?
Nope. Whoever wrote it must be above needing credit.
You communist lizard scumbags! I wrote that! Me, Jerry Smith!
While they're driving through New York, for a split second, there's a sign up for Crapopolis the Musical, which is hilarious, and a reference to one of Dan Harmon's other shows that I honestly do enjoy myself, and I've been debating covering. When Rick pretends he's pulling the gun so the trees will shoot him, only to reveal it was the ball Tannenbaum gave him earlier, saying,
See you next summer.
It's actually two references. One, the fact that these franchises always come back, but especially so during the summer, and it's also a direct reference to the ending of the movie Falling Down, thanks to this commentary pointing it out to us.
Don't do this, please.
I would have got you.
Rick also pulls a vat of acid when he launches himself and Morty into the classic superhero movie Skybeam Generator, ending the movie and making James Gunn walk over crying, and one of his tears drops on the keyboard, and thanks to Prof. Grass for pointing out that this works because of Rick saying,
Movielizer, make us care!
to the computer earlier. And as they're already materializing, we can just barely make out James grabbing the hard drive and making his escape as Rick and Morty decide to just be
An impossible to please fan.
You said it! Let's go troll some comment section!
When James hands the hard drive to Mr. Brothers, it's obviously a joke about Warner Brothers being owned by someone named Brothers, not Warner. Mr. Brothers thanks him, then has him shot by a gun named Sunday, and as he dies, he assumes the pose we see Superman in at the beginning of the new Superman movie. The credit song is funny, but outside of the obvious bit summarizing what the movie is, my favorite line is, gotta fill out our content demand, if domestic tanks, there's always Japan. A reference to the fact that Japan's movie-going audience can make or break a movie that fails in the US. Moving on to episode 8, during the opening morning routine, while Morty chases Summer for a drink, this Jerry watches happily, which I found interesting given his line later in the episode.
Your family's cool, by the way. My Morty and Summer fight way more than yours.
I'm wondering if this was a lie, or if maybe this just reminded him of his kids. I want to assume the latter. When the two get Chinese food, the other Jerry says,
The road provides.
and this is an expression I've heard from a hitchhiker before, but I could not find any specific origins for it. Joe Baseball says it's a play on the phrase, the land provides, which makes sense. Mr. Washi also says the quote comes from the novel On the Road, which I don't think exists as an exact quote in the book, but rather as the spirit of the narrative. A little later, he also says,
Just to be clear, if you do try to kill me and take over my life, I can scream very loud.
a direct reference to Dark Matter, which is basically a live-action dramatic take on Rick and Morty. Anyways, they get back home, and while Jerry distracts Rick by talking about the new Naked and Alone episode, obviously a reference to the real show Naked and Afraid, it sets up this ongoing bit throughout the episode, including the post-credit scene.
Catch that episode of Naked and Alone last night? Hey, between you and me, I think that guy likes to drink the yak piss.
Are you making conversation with me?
Sorry.
I guess I do watch that TV show. And he does seem excited about the piss.
He does!
On the way. On the way. I would like to reach out my hand. I think I saw a yak out there. If I can capture it, I should be able to drink its piss for 2 weeks.
Probably even 3.
Hey, Dad, have you seen the... Oh, God, Jesus, come on!
It's the culture of the show. You're supposed to watch it naked.
It is the culture of the show, honey.
Guys, we all use those couches!
You're so right about this guy.
Turn it up!
All the Jerrys seem to have the same Hot Dad brewing coaster, which yes, seems about right for Jerry. In the universe where every word is blah, they watch the local Rick try to force his Morty into the ship with a giant ant, which leaves me curious about what the story was. They were definitely saying something specific, like these were written lines. I just can't make out what they were. When the Jerrys sneak into the bathroom, we see a picture of the local Snowball who has a cool spot in his eye. They climb through a mirror tunnel to another dimension, and this scene between the Infinite Tunnel and the Frozen Wasteland is definitely another reference to dark matter. This universe's Snowball has a bigger and darker spot on his other eye. At the memorial wall, thanks to Shane Jail for pointing out that the smiley face kind of looks like the Transmetropolitan Three-Eyed Smiley. And Chris and Namka thought it might be the three-eyed smiley from Evolution. Though I do think this is a screw either way. Village Idiot points out that the triangle kind of looks like Bill Cipher, which wouldn't be the first time the show referenced it. This bee here is the mascot of at least Mooch's universe's Harry Herbs and Hyde, so this might be Mooch's item. Thanks to all these commenters for pointing out that this is a worm on a string, a popular children's toy, and I guess it's a pretty big deal I haven't heard of them. I don't think any of the other items are references, but just in case any of you recognize anything else, we have multiple items with 2 feathers, a cleaver, a wedding ring, a bracelet, an earring. I think this is a bow tie, and there's a frozen crowbar down here. The rest are just frozen hunks of metal or cloth. During the montage, they start in a dimension where everything is made from what I think is yarn, or at least knitting supplies. You can see a bunch of yarn balls needles everywhere. The textures are all yarny. Even the bee is made of yarn, and its wings are just little unmoving loops. When they watch from a crack as the goat family eats a metal drum, it's obviously a scene from this season's theme song. And they use an armchair trap to enter the next universe, and we see a reminder of Jerry's Titanic obsession. Mooch also wears a watch, unlike our Jerry, obviously to help keep him on track for his multiversal hitchhiking. The broken bag of holding is a clear D&D reference. At Grand Central Station, the initials are carved into a tree. Out front of the house, there's a bunch of tents, and one of them has a welcome home doormat, which is kind of sad. One of the abandoned Jerrys has a black eye. This guy's working on a map of the universal cracks, and thanks to Kianka for pointing out that it's styled very similarly to the Umbrella Academy map. They walk into the boss Jerry's office as he's applying Nevia hair dye. The Rick is heating up what seems like crystallized portal fluid on a spoon like it's heroin, reminding us of this Rick from the Citadel episode. Boss Jerry reveals that all the Jerrys have the same ATM pin, 3852, which is the main part of Rick's prisoner number when he's held by the Federation. Later in Mooch's home dimension, Hisbeth's new husband is a callback to Season 2, Episode 2.
Paul Fleischman, Infinite Timelines, and some of them Beth remarries.
Jeez.
Don't worry, I treat Beth very well, and I do not overstep my bounds with Morty. Every kid needs a dad, but there's no replacing you.
While Mooch talks to his family, Jerry is just hilariously chowing down on the reversed version of his cereal, Nutland Jape Cracks. Also probably as revenge for Mooch having eaten his cereal. When they're sneaking back into Grand Central Station, we see the board with the band Jerry's, and there's one with a hat and sunglasses, and thanks to Architect and Jolly for pointing out that this is a Luffy from One Piece Jerry, and just a fish Jerry. The rest are all normal looking. Guard Jerry is reading the book Fight Club, which is kind of funny. During the montage, they emerge in a Cubism universe, which is the art style they are mimicking with faces. Then in the old-fashioned universe where Beth is making cookies, we can see she's dressed as a traditional wife, and even a little more makeup on than usual. There's a horse on her apron to show that she still had dreams and goals, even if she couldn't pursue them in this universe. They also run by Rick with a cool design lab coat, and the bandana Jerrys immediately start acting innocent as that Rick catches on to what they're doing, which was funny. After the montage, though, they do manage to break past the security guard at Grand Central. And here's where we have to pause, because I hate to be this guy, but this made absolutely zero sense. It doesn't matter, it's a great episode, and this ruins nothing, but just to point it out, this was the dimension they were in when they took the bag of holding to Grand Central. The one where they missed the portal out at Taco La Taco and had to wait a week, and there was no other way out. That's literally why they went to Grand Central. So how did they get home from here? Also, they visited the Yarn, Hippie, and Flooded universes before Grand Central, or even Taco La Taco. So shouldn't they have been able to get home from those? Again, it doesn't matter, but just logically, this does not add up. But again, literally who cares? Chartreuse Maiden says, though, that the bag of holding could be the emergency exit that all the universes have. They are all just controlled by Grand Central. She also pointed out that the sleep episode set up the fact that the Jerrys can get along, as I suppose the Jerry Brie episode did too. When Rick catches Jerry with a coaster, look how much time passes from Rick leaving to walking back in. He must have been just standing right by the door. Maybe he suspected it already, but either way, it's kind of weird but funny to think about. T. Villager James theorized that Rick thinks Jerry wears Beth's clothes, which is funny. Anyways, Rick figures out what it means immediately, but tells Jerry it might be good for him, which immediately causes Jerry to flip it back over as the final joke and reference of the episode. And thanks to this commenter for pointing out that this is a reference to Jerry having said that before, that if Rick says to do something, you probably shouldn't do it at some point in the series. However, After way too much time Googling, transcript searching, and asking the AI overlords, Reddit, and even the original commenter for help finding the scene, I still can't find the scene, but I do distinctly remember it. So if you recall which episode he says this in, please leave it in the comments. Moving on to episode 9, we open on the family eating pancakes, and Jerry says,
It feels like we eat them all the time.
which yes, the Smiths do eat pancakes pretty often. Two instances come to mind immediately, though I'm guessing there are plenty more.
Morty's on Jessica's Instagram again.
Oh, I get it.
I would say more often than not, though, they just eat breakfast food in general. But in this moment, Beth and Rick do look at each other weird, and Morty and Summer look at them weird too, so maybe it is something. Beth did make him a giant stack of pancakes for his anniversary living with them in season 1, episode 10, so maybe this has special meaning to him somehow? When Jerry pulls out the book Junior wrote, Trashing Morty, we can see he's annotated it, and I imagine there's notes scribbled on every page, which is hilarious. In Junior's hospital room, the TV is playing Downbeat the Show, a continuation of the Downbeat gag that makes jokes out of the phrase downbeat, which among people who work in TV, downbeat means the activity that characters are doing at the beginning of a scene before the actual scene begins.
Downbeat.
How do you win this fucking game? We've never gotten that far.
Downbeat.
I enjoy this game.
We'll play Downbeat and we'll camp here tonight and then rebuild the house.
We're not gonna finish playing Downbeat?
What, that dice game where you shake dice and yell out downbeat?
As Junior talks, the animators did a good job of making it seem like he's hamming it up a lot, especially since it turns out he wasn't dying or anything, and we don't even ever see him cough again for the rest of the episode. At Precogs, in the giant fish tank, we see one of the Precogs swimming around. As they walk through the place, there's an alien eating the brains out of a bug head while their date eats what looks like spaghetti out of the little critter's mouth. And then there's presumably a couple sharing some kind of ice cream looking dessert. As Summer and Rick get to their table, we also see a fly eating a BDSM rotisserie chicken, complete with a ball gag, leather straps, and a spiked collar, while their lady frog date eats another alien of some sort. Rick's meal is
More Lackey and Fawn.
Beside its mother's tentacle.
which he dodges the tentacle to eat the fawn first, but he does finish the tentacle too, which is not as alien as you might think. There's a Korean dish called Sanakji that involves eating a still writhing and squirming octopus tentacle. On the edge of the screen, though, we also see the classiest looking alien snail ever eating some kind of goop, one we saw in the casino during episode 5 of this season. Rick's trash portal was light blue instead of green. We saw plenty of these in the Rick Prime finale episode, but Rick using one is unheard of, and I honestly don't know why this is. But we do have some comments. Big Boy and Soup Vids point out we did see Rick using blue in the early stage portal tech back in season 3. That Day Before Tomorrow also speculates the blue kind needs a frame, which he might be right for the dark blue ones featured in the pilot episode, but this is the light blue variety, so it doesn't apply. Inside, we see an old banana peel on the console, a classic TV trope for showing that a place is a mess. Morty locks the console and the ladder retracts as I think mechanical doors close over the portal. As the shot expands, though, we do see a cool iron giant looking guy. At the end of the shot, we see the obvious reference to the Eye of Sauron in Rick's Salvatron system. Back at Precog, we see the frog and fly couple getting their desserts. The frog gets a cute little pirate ship on something green with tentacles coming out, and the fly gets a little critter tied up by its limbs. The fancy snail, though, is still working on the same size pile of goop, probably a joke about snails being slow. When Summer barges into the back kitchen, we can see what I think is the lava cake Rick wanted on the shelf here. There's a lot of human ingredients in the kitchen, carrots, potatoes, whatever you call these things. No Easter eggs, but it is cool that they're half submerged in the water even while cooking. When the ground falls in under the Mortys and they fall through the hole, we can see a Meeseeks box here. From the hole perspective, we can see a second Meeseeks box down here. In the trash pile, we can see the spaghetti plate from the spaghetti episode. In Garbtopia, there's a photo booth and movie stand and a robot carrying a bone. And since we see they use bones in construction, he's probably using it to build something. There's a stereo robot and a mustache TV robot who vaguely reminds me of Miss Minutes. Walking version of the reclining chair, and this alien back here is wearing a Boob World hat. And thanks to all these commenters for pointing out that the alien is actually Garbage Goober himself, and I have no idea how I missed that while noticing his hat. During the play, up in the corner, we can also see a Lucky Cat statue, which I'm surprised Rick would buy at all. And over here we can see a fishbowl robot ordering out what looks like a food stand called Leftovers. The Precogs obviously knew Summer would smack the Claire in the pool when they offered her some, since they scoop it up and give it to Rick, who says,
Claire's good wet, too.
In the graveyard, there's a lot of dead robot graves, and one desktop computer grave, which I thought was funny. After Morty gets taken hostage and the Salvatrons close in and shoot the trash bot, Morty manages to fall through another hole to escape, which makes me think of this.
Then, as fate would have it, a very large air vent opened beneath them. Our heroes escape execution via the large vented air vent. As fate would have it, this is a direct path to the outside.
In the trash pile, we see the butter robot here, and this robot head, thanks to everyone who pointed out, is the robot ghost from the episode where PB crashes with the family.
I present to you, Robo Ghost!
Assembling body.
Activating sanctions. Uploading business. Unfinished business detected. Terminating body.
Okay, I need to make gravity part of its finished business.
We also see a can of Mortio's spaghetti down here, again from the spaghetti episode. The cogs give Summer detailed instructions on how to avoid Rick that ultimately wind up turning the truck into a cool-looking food truck, first through a freshly painted sign in Spanish for a car accident injury attorney, then Rick tears the hole along the side using a towing hook. Then they crash through a restaurant depot to get the cooking supplies, and at times they literally blind Summer in order to get her to make the right mistakes so they survive, which is pretty cool. During the Salvatron attack, one of the sentient urinals says,
How? Right the pisser.
an obvious reference to Ralph from the Honeymooners.
One of these days, right in the kisser!
While the truck crashes through an indie market, Summer manages to avoid everyone, including a couple taking romantic pictures, some kids, and this hilarious cat. Back in the garbage dimension, we see a used gun shop in their newly established civilization, as well as a dollar bin garbage shop. When the portal reopens, it's the food truck that falls through, setting up the post-credit scene, and when the shot shifts to a drawing of the scene in Junior's next book, despite it being black and white, the cyborg's eye is still red for some reason. The shot then widens to reveal the family is looking at the book at a stand in an airport. Rick is actually there too, and wearing what I think are ski goggles, indicating they're going skiing, but I honestly have to ask why Rick would ever need to take a plane anywhere, ever. It honestly makes zero sense and is the most confusing part of the entire episode to me. And moving on to the finale, we open on Rick and Bug Ann out of breath from interspecies coitus. Already a joke since in episode 2 of this season, Beth literally said,
Please don't fuck my coworkers.
Hey, you called me. Yeah. This has been fun.
Bug Ann's name is also kind of a reference to Bird Person's name, which is itself a joke since the whole species are birds, and her name is Bug Ann, but her whole family and planet are bugs. And thanks to all these commenters for pointing out, too, that it's very similar to the name Diane. Anyways, we see the family watching Cake or Fake Celebrity Edition, another entry in the Cake or Fake show, which has been funny.
Please, come on! You have to know! Do I not breathe? Do I not speak?
Give me the knife.
No! No, oh my god, please! I'm not a king!
But this time the guest is Mr. Stabby, who is also a returning feature.
Let's get another question from the audience.
What do you say to people who say, I don't want to get stabbed, I want to go to a show?
Well, Gary, I have a right to arms and legs.
But do you have to take questions from the audience?
They didn't want it, they'd stop coming.
Your show has resulted in the deaths of 58,000 attendees.
You're talking about it.
Jerry's reaction is great while presumably watching Mr. Stabby murder that baby. In Jerry's altered memory of Beth's baby shower, we can see a sign that just says, "Oh baby," Jerry's parents sitting back here, and with Beth looking kind of uncomfortable. We then see Memory Rick driving the family in a car made of gears and springs, which is a funny reference, but I'd think he would never want to make something out of that stuff ever again after escaping. Anyways, he gets sucked out of Jerry's brain and into a digital world, and Rick resets Jerry's memories back to normal, which makes Beth comment,
Amazing that you can just suck out an intrusive memory like that.
and Space Beth also makes a similar comment at the end.
Pretty impressive reset job.
Which I think is part of a larger theme the show was trying to establish about Rick. He's always been obsessed with memory, which makes sense after what happened with Diane. He was always trying to find ways to regain his memories after Rick Prime wiped her from reality, and he seems to have regained at least a little slice. Anyways, Rick traps Memory Rick in what he calls an ant farm brain, but to me personally it looks more like a desktop computer brain. While building another ant farm brain, he drops a bit of brain matter into the solution, but behind it we see some memory vials, and since we later see this takes place in the vault, it makes me wonder what memories are so bad they have to be secured like this. The brain matter expands and he tosses it into a laundry basket to carry. He then builds a case for it, doing something we very rarely see Rick do: use a blueprint. He travels to some sort of digital memory palace and visits his only remaining memory of Diane while she's at a shooting range, where she seems to be really good. The context here is interesting though, because he does not seem to be part of the memory. So how could it be one of his memories? Obviously based on the second gun and the way she looks at it for a moment here, like she's missing him, but how could he remember it? Was he watching? Terroria suggests that he erased himself from the memory, so he can only see it when reading his own mind with an external device. Richie and Burns suggest that it's a memory of Rick imagining what Diane was doing while he was elsewhere, therefore technically not being a real memory of Diane. And on the subject, Taikina points out that Diane was probably a really dangerous person based on the few things we know about her. Once Bugan comes to pick Rick up for the barbecue and he introduces her to everyone, he steals one of Jerry's pancakes. And now that Jerry pointed it out, I have to play this clip every time they have pancakes.
Is someone requesting pancakes? Because it feels like we eat them all the time.
Beth's actual Rick does look basically exactly like Rick Prime, even though yes, I know it's not him, and has one of the older generation portal guns too. Back on Bugan's home planet, we see they're setting up for some kind of festival around what looks kind of like a termite or other bugs plenty mounds. There are crowds cheering, and this is nothing like a family barbecue I've ever been to, but maybe family barbecues are different when you're a bug. There's a piano player back here, and a bug being roasted here. Bugan points out her ex-boyfriend, who's bending a bug apart from a bowl full of delicious insect body parts. Once Rick mentions sleeping with Bugan and gets challenged to duel her ex-boyfriend in a giant arena, it makes this line from Bugan's mom earlier especially funny.
Bromphamites give us bugs a bad name. Such a violent culture.
The platform Bugan's family's on is shaped like a giant bug head, which is pretty badass. Beth's altered memory of detention. Here it says proctored by Beth's cool dad. When Beth is slicing up celery and talking to Space Beth, and Summer walks in from doing chores for Rick saying,
Piranha plants are in heat again.
That moment right there is obviously where Beth pickpocketed Summer for the key, even though it's not explicitly stated. She later does a Black Widow landing into level 7 of the sub-basement. Once they re-enter Beth's mind and she gets up, we finally get a full shot of this crazy looking coffin with red gems on it. And despite plenty of people taking shots in the comments, we still don't know what this thing is. We have a couple of theories, one that it's the Jewish Urim and Thummim, and another that it's related to Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, but unfortunately I haven't been able to confirm either theory. I love that in Memory Rick's machine, his chair still has a gear and spring in it. Later, he and Memory Diane are making their way to Beth's recent memories, so we see the family out front during the Matrix episode, and Morty is working on his tank. Then the Easter episode, where Jerry's becoming more bunny-like. Then the de-aged Beth's episode, who make an appearance later on. And finally, thanks to Lady K for pointing out that these two Beths, respectively, are referencing Buffy the Vampire Slayer and the titular Hannah. Both great catches. And that makes all 241. But let's take a look back at the 8 open questions we have in case any of you figure them out. In episode 2, we have Space Beth's yellow suit and her little Medroid. Episode 6 had how to differentiate between the two Beths and Jean's voicemails. And finally, episode 8 had the ant dialogue and Jerry's quote about not doing what Rick says. If you've stayed this far, I just want to say thank you so much for watching, and please let me know what you'd like to see me covered next. Right now I'm considering moving backward through Rick and Morty, or possibly doing I have a couple more ideas for season 8 of Rick and Morty, but I'd really love to hear what you all think. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.